Hello, if you've not seen the True Geordie podcast, Wolf of Wall Street 3, with my mate Wildman, then you're in for a real treat. The link is in the show more box below this video if you want to click directly over to the podcast. It got put on True Geordie's channel a couple of days ago. It's already over 100,000 views. So I thought it was a good thing to start responding to the comments. Some people have asked what was the drug we mentioned that we were taking shots of. That was GHB. We were all taking shots of it except for Wildman, who drank the whole bottle. Yeah, drank a whole bottle of GHB, and we tell that story in the podcast. One person's written, should be a monthly podcast with Shaun and Wildman. Yeah, Brian even suggested we start our own podcast. Wildman's such a natural. A lot of people are comparing him to Joey Diaz, who does stand-up and also played Big Pussy in The Sopranos, the big guy. Yeah, Joey Diaz played people like Wildman. Wildman's the real deal. He doesn't pull any punches, as you see in the video. He's just completely natural, and considering he's not done much on camera, I thought he took over and had a really commanding presence. So yeah, podcast would, monthly podcast, that would be great. Me and Wildman interviewing people or just talking shit or answering comments. If anyone out there can help us, because Wildman's up in the north, I guess we'd need like camera people, studio up in the north. That's the kind of thing we need to get sorted out. They're laughing at Wildman's catchphrase, do you know what I mean? Need another episode. So we went in there and we were going to talk about all Wildman stories and plus the prison stories, but just Wildman stories from Arizona lasted for 3 hours. Yeah, almost 3 hours. Didn't even get onto the prison stuff. So Geordie said if the video gets 10,000 plus likes, it's already at 7,000 or 8,000, we're definitely going to get back on to do Wildman's prison stories. So that's going to be part 4. And if you guys, you guys all lobbied for me to go on there. I thank everybody, especially all the school kids that have heard me speak at their school. People were lobbying for Wildman to go on. Keep Myvrin, Brian and Lawrence to have us back on and commenting, and then we'll get part 4 going pretty good. So far only 35 people disliked the video. I think that the comments, if I look at the comments on my other 2 True Geordie podcasts and look at my comments on this one, Wildman definitely took it to a whole new level. I think this is the most positive comments I've ever seen. One guy says this podcast get better and better, how it worked, but where can you go from here? Well, wait till you hear Wildman's prison stories. I heard there was a raving witness. That was the beginning of one of Wildman's stories. How old are they both? I'm 49 and Wildman is 2 years younger than me. Wildman's laugh gives me life. I want the people who made Train Spotting to listen to this. A lot of people are saying our story should be turned into a movie, and I've got some people kind of working on that, but we've had no signed deal from Sony or anyone like that yet. So until that happens, I'm not going to get excited about it, because a lot of people have blown smoke up my arse over the years about there's going to be a movie deal. Insane podcast, what a wild life they've lived. Oh yeah, Wildman was talking about Golden Wonder crisps. He used to work at the Crispy. For Americans, that's potato chips. If you don't know what crisps are. Should try and get... Who actually watched the whole podcast? True Geordie. Get him on again, this was incredible. Let's see. Wildman is possibly the greatest man alive. Favourite podcast ever. Cut a long story short, another Wildman quote. A lot of people said that because Wildman, there was like a lamp behind him. So as he was talking about a Mexican story, some people thought he was wearing a sombrero. Other people thought he was wearing like a Chinese lantern. Wildman is a legend in his own right. We need part 4. Quoting Wildman and the titty girl was. A few stories about titty girls in there from Wildman. Geordie needs to turn captions on. Quite a few people have commented who live in Widnes, appreciate that. putting Widnes on the map with our story. Love how Wildman tells us the story of how he took, oh God, reading, how mental has not picked this up, how Hollywood has not picked up his mental. Does Lawrence not know how maps work? Can't remember what that pertained to because the bloody podcast was so long. The escalation is just beginning. That was one of my stories, just when you thought everything got insane. I mean, Wildman was hammering the ciders and Brian was drinking as well. Even Lawrence was drinking by the end. So a lot of the stories, we just started to jump from story to story. So we was telling like 5 different stories at once. So the whole podcast just got more mental and insane towards the end to make it the most batshit insane podcast ever. As far as True Geordie's podcasts. Great way to finish it. Can I use your loo? I think that was Wildman. Wildman at the end asking how he came across. Oh, God bless him. He's fucking boss. No one can beat this podcast. Could listen to this for ages. Skinner. Yeah, Skinner was the guy who worked for me. Sammy the Bull's crew, knocked his teeth out, and then he ended up turning us into the police. And a lot of the podcast was about Wildman's vendetta with Skinner. Skinner actually had Wildman's girlfriend's apartment firebombed while Wildman was on his 2nd deportation from America. He kept getting deported. Judge classified him as a menace to society, and I kept smuggling him back into the country. And then he ended up, Wildman and Wildwoman ended up as the heads of the crime family with me. The Attwood organisation, the prosecutor called it. Need to make a film, get them on for your 100th podcast, Brian. Brilliant. Lawrence's face when Wildman said, good looking he-she's is the best bit of internet out there. Amazing, can't wait for the next one. Can you put it on Spotify? $20 a pill. I'm sure in those days they were cheaper. It used to be like 3 for a tenner in the UK. The street price in Arizona, this isn't the UK we were dealing, this is Arizona, was $20 to $30. I was getting them out of LA for 10 or less, and then once I was going through Holland, I was getting them for $3 or less. And bear in mind all the costs of smuggling them from Holland into Europe, like Germany, France, putting people on airplanes back to Mexico City, Hermosillo. What about a Nick Yaris part 2? I think I'd like to do a video, just me and Nick Yaris having a chat, or me and Paul Hannaford having a chat, or me and Neil Woods having a chat actually. We all seem to have become fan favourites on True Geordie. Appreciate everyone clicking over to my channel. My subs now are over 40,000. Can we go on Joe Rogan? Well, I'm banned from America for life. Wildman's banned from America. The only way we'd be able to go on Joe Rogan is if like you brought 2 robots on with like the head screens, and we did it through Skype or some kind of video conferencing. Love to do that. I mean, if Joe Rogan, perhaps he'll make an exception because we are banned for life. If people start tweeting Joe Rogan and messaging him about getting us on, then you know, maybe just like with True Geordie, it was all you guys tweeting him and messaging him that got us on. Maybe same thing can happen with Joe Rogan. 8 an ounce of meth, question mark. Yeah, we were all paranoid in the car. We thought the police were behind us, and we've said what we're going to do. We had an ounce of meth. Give it Wildman, he'll eat it. Wildman ate the entire ounce of meth. And that story is also in The Wolf of Wall Street, UK's Wolf of Wall Street Part 3 True Geordie podcast. Link below this video in the See More box. I did get Wildman a new laptop so that he can keep putting comments up on the YouTube and then responding to your comments. And Wildman doesn't have a smartphone. He just told me this last week, and he's hoping that maybe someone who's watching this, if you've traded your smartphone in and got a new smartphone, if you've got an old smartphone, Wildman's asked me to put a word out there so people get in touch with us and send your phone over to Wildman so he can keep responding to these comments and he can get more engaged. He's also got a Twitter account now. Twitter handle at Wildman of Widnes. Widnes is WIDNES. I wish Shaun and Wildman had pictures of them back in the day. Well, put Shaun Attwood, Business Insider. Business Insider did a story on me, and Vice magazine did a story on me, and they used loads of pictures of us from back in the day, so you can find those online. Cannot wait for part 4. Wildman is pissed out of his head. It should be a Netflix series, someone said here. Yeah, the audiobooks alone are 30 plus hours of content. And I haven't even got all my content out there yet, so plenty more content for podcasts, and I think definitely they could do a Netflix series like Breaking Bad, because look at Breaking Bad, it was in New Mexico. Arizona's next to New Mexico. I met all the same people Walter White met, Mexican cartel guys, Mexican mafia guys, biker gangs, neo-Nazi gangs, Aryan Brotherhood. I love Wildman. Fantastic to see Shaun back on. Quote of Wildman: "You make it sound like it's my fault." This was when Wildman was dropping TVs on his roommates because they left the heroin needles out after he'd warned them not to. Mad shit, yes, definitely. Outstanding podcast. Shaun and Wildman for XO. What is Brian drinking? Yeah, so hopefully I'd like to get Wildman on some other podcasts as well out there. And, you know, like I said, Wildman lives in Widnes. It's between Liverpool and Manchester. He doesn't understand technology very well. You know, I've been helping him, filming him, getting the videos on YouTube. If there's anyone up in the Widnes area, because I'm not up in Widnes for a couple of months, it would help us out while we go over and film Wildman answering questions for YouTube. So we can keep the content coming, because loads of people are saying want to keep the content coming with Wildman on YouTube. We'd really appreciate it. And if anyone out there's got an old phone they can give Wildman, we'd really appreciate that as well. Anyway, we appreciate all your love and support. Thanks everybody for putting word out there, getting us on the True Geordie podcast. Keep messaging people, and you know, maybe we'll get on more platforms like that. And send in your questions and comments, and we'll keep responding to them as much as we can. So I hope you enjoy Wolf of Wall Street UK's part 3 on True Geordie. I've done the other podcast for True Geordie now. One's got 400,000 hits. I think the other one's got 200,000 or 300,000 views. So if you've not seen them yet, check them all out, because they're all insane. They've all got completely different stories in them. And big thanks to Brian and Lawrence for having us back on.